Hi, Randy.
Hi, Jill.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. I love your artwork.
Thank you. My little inspiration.
I understand, believe me. So how's it going?
It's going well. Busy
Great.
week.
Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to talk about the Local Government Innovation Fund Awards. Have things settled down yet?
The dust is settling.
Good, good. Well, I just wanted to follow up with a few questions. I'm with the EfficientGov Network, and I'll be hopefully putting this call on the EGN site so that folks can get a little bit of enlightenment from you about how the LGIF first round went and what your hopes are for the next rounds. Any advice you might be able to offer, what you've learned from this first round. And I guess technically the second round as well. But why don't we start with maybe you're talking a little bit about what you'd hoped for a year ago when you put this into, well, gosh, is it 2 years ago now when this went into the biennium?
1 year ago.
It was 1 year.
The program was established in House Bill 153, this year's biennium budget, which the first fiscal year does end June 30th. So we're almost a year into that 2-year budget. But that's when the program was put into place. In September, the council actually met for the first time. We seated the council and started working on turning this into a real program that local governments and schools can take advantage of.
So that was the fall of
2011.
2011. Wow, time flies. And so you spent those 4 months last fall through early winter kind of getting set up and organizing the council and the criteria and the applications and all of that. And I remember in December you started to get feet on the ground in terms of getting out to the communities and talking a little bit about what everything was going to look like, the applications, the scoring and all of that. And then January came around and you had the announcements out. How do you feel the response, certainly for the first round, met with the expectations?
I think it at least met expectations, but maybe exceeded expectations. I mean, we consider, the word we keep using is strong support or strong interest in the program. And I think for a new program, with everything everybody has to do all the time anyway, getting 115 applications was very strong support from local government. You know, and it's 115 applications, but when you look at it, I think it was up over 500 schools and governments collaborating together to put those 115 applications in.
I'm really glad you said that, because that was going to be one of my questions, was how many political subdivisions were actually represented by those 115 applications?
Yeah, a little over 500.
That's great. So what's the number that you usually like to quote when you're talking about the number of governmental units? But in all seriousness, I can't remember if it's either in the 3,000s, the 5,000s, or the 8,000s, but what is that number that you usually reference?
I usually reference 3,962 political subdivisions or units of government in the state.
Okay.
And those are numbers derived from state law, from the U.S. Census Bureau, but that's looking at townships, cities, villages, counties, school districts, and then those special districts like libraries, soil and water conservation districts, or water and sewer districts that have been put in place. It's a lot. It's a very big number. And then the 5,000 figure sometimes you hear me talk about is last year when we did the shared services survey to see what everybody was doing. We ended up emailing it to 5,800 potential respondents, because if we take a county as an example as a political subdivision, you still have 17, except in the case of Summit and Cuyahoga, 2 leaders in Northeast Ohio again for innovation and transformation. But outside of that, you've got 3 commissioners, the judges, the sheriff, the prosecutor, the auditor. Well, they all have independent authority to enter into shared service agreements or share technology or do these different projects together. And in fact, we found county engineers being the lead in some communities. And so, you'll hear me either say 3,962 units of government, or you'll hear me talk about the 5,800 public officials who are responsible for the top of day-to-day operations in units units of government.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Now I will be able to remember those two, because I'm kind of conflating them, because once you get into the thousands,
it starts to get big.
Yeah, so that is good. So it's about a 15% participation rate, and given the lead time, which was really quite constrained, I think, because of the goal and the ambition of trying just to get something out there. I know anecdotally, probably a lot of political subdivisions would have liked to have had more time, but we know sometimes if you give too much time, it doesn't happen. So you kind of need those deadlines. So you got these 115, and if you can give me like what it was about that pile of applications that elicited the biggest smile, and the thing that elicited the biggest groan.
Well, there are a couple smiles. One of the first smiles is being an alumni, as I like to say, of the EfficientGov Network. Leading the pack was Northeast Ohio again. Northeast Ohio submitted 39 applications into the program, and that far exceeded any other region of the state. The other thing that really made me smile was the diversity of projects. Again, we had counties leading, schools leading, cities leading, county engineers, education service centers, a variety of different types of government entities stepping up and being leaders in the process. And then we also had diversity across technology and administration projects, public safety projects. Some of the health and human service agencies did things, educational projects. So that spectrum, we like to classify shared services around 9 broad themes or 9 broad categories, and all of those were represented in the types of projects we saw. I had an initial concern that maybe because of some things that were happening out there, either with technology or public safety communication systems or things, that we'd see some cookie cutter or just an abundance of a certain type of project, and we didn't. We saw full diversity geographically around the state, by type of political subdivision submitting them, and by the type of project they were pushing forward, or the new efficiency they were trying to gain.
Great. And the groans?
The groans, the groans were probably that in some cases, I think some people had some really good ideas, and they missed the mark a little, or even some of the projects we funded, the scale isn't big enough. You've heard me talk before, Jill, about thinking big. If you're going to do something, it should be thought about county-wide or multiple counties, or getting in Cuyahoga County, for the example, trying to get all the cities together, especially on the technology projects and other things that you can really get to an economy of scale, and multiple government entities can participate. And yet it would be two villages and a township trying to get together. And you think, no, it's just not big enough. That would probably be the groans in some of those cases. But I think that's part of the difficulty of collaboration, is finding willing partners. We've talked about it before, having that trust that the more people you get in, you're still going to be able to manage the project, or you're going to have good partners. I think some of the smaller projects, it was getting to that level that those were the people they trusted, those were the people who they thought had common interest and weren't going to steer the ship away from a common goal. So that was probably the biggest groan. Some of the projects were a little smaller than I would have liked to have seen.
So taking a 30,000-foot view of what's gone on, like you said, you're an alum of the EfficientGov now, so you've really been working with this notion of incentivizing the move towards more local government collaboration for quite a while. When I hear that, I think, 12 total of the applications were loans and the remainder were for the grants, and kind of a lack of applications for this current round, I imagine that that's due in part to two things. One, folks not brainstorming yet about what they could actually even do, so they're not necessarily sold on even pursuing shared services or collaboration. And then the second being the need for more of the feasibility studies, that's just part of where we're at statewide. Is that accurate, or how would you describe kind of the continuum of where communities are in embracing the whole notion of government collaboration.
I think you hit on a couple of very important points, Jill, and then I'll add one. I think that just the timing of it was definitely part of it. We did not receive any applications to my knowledge. The deadline was Friday for this round, but this was a loan-only round, and we know a number of the grants that we approved Friday. They're going to be working on them over the summer to try to submit a project in September, perhaps for a loan. Again, going back to Northeast Ohio and the leadership, we had 39 applications up there, 4 loans. 4 of the 10 loans that were awarded were for projects in Northeast Ohio. And I'd say the EfficientGovNetwork and the government efficiency projects that we worked on over the last few years, some of those created the feasibility studies or the collaborations that put people in place to apply for a loan today. And so that's definitely part of it. Some places, these projects are just in their infancy and they're not sure what to do. They're not ready to invest in capital or new facilities or systems to enable the collaboration yet. They've got to do that homework first. But I think a lot of those projects will come back as loans. The other thing is, it's kind of a simple one. It was just the calendar. I think the fact that we asked for loans and grants by April 1st, and then said we'd award that money by July, people heard that message and thought that was it. Or they know that we're going to do grants and loans again in September, and I think that the June date just got lost in that mix. We have already received some grant. I'm not sure if we've received any loan applications or at least interest in submissions for September already. And so I just think that June date kind of got lost in everything else that was happening. The other part is it's a new program. I continue, as you know, to give presentations around the state, continue to listen to more barriers we can reduce, more ideas about collaboration and things the state needs to do at a policy level to help facilitate those and make it easier. And a number of those audiences did not submit anything yet, or in some cases just haven't heard about it yet. You know, you and I, as you know, like to say that we're either good government geeks or policy wonks. And, you know, we both tweet about this, and there aren't a lot of people in the Twitterverse that are out tweeting about government efficiency, right? We've got our network, but that's about it. And I think because of that, there's just so much going on that the program hasn't got legs, or they're waiting to see who was awarded funding, what these projects were like. And when we put these projects out on the web, when people can see these applications, see who is awarded the projects, get more local media coverage about the nature of these things, it's going to really help us as we move towards September. And I hope a number of those projects that weren't funded this time around come back for September, because there were some very good projects in there. And whether their project, like I said before, needs tweaking, maybe another collaborative partner, maybe they need to think a little bigger, fine-tune what the concept behind their project is, or their application needs fine-tuned and tweaked. And the Department of Development officials are very happy to work with those projects, work with those entities who submitted them, the applicants, to fine-tune their applications for September. I hope a number of them come back. There were only 13 projects actually withdrawn or disqualified as being ineligible for funding.
I think I saw in the press release it mentioned 105 applications. So is that the number? Does that number represent those that were cured and able to make it to the council for scoring?
Yes.
Okay. So if you had 3 tips to give to elected officials, department heads, interested voters, other stakeholders who are aware of the LGIF program, what would be the 3 things that you would advise them going forward towards the remainder of the year and the 2 cycles that are left?
Well, first I'd say please do take a time and look at who received funding. Again, whether that's newspaper articles or going on the web. Today, you've already sent out the link, a number of us have, to the Department of Development, where they've listed out the projects. Soon we will be posting all of those projects and the actual applications on the Auditor of State's website on Skinny, Ohio. So those will be there and in the Shared Services Idea Center. I'd say while you're visiting the Shared Services Idea Center, look at the other collaborative projects that are similar to that. Again, we grouped our projects into 9 categories that we've talked about before: facilities, technology, administration, public works, public safety, on through the list. The Shared Services Idea Center is organized exactly the same way around those same categories. And what I've been told by the technology people is that these projects are going to be loaded into that same database. So whether they were funded by LGIF or not, if it's a joint dispatch project, there could be a dozen of those examples, even if we only funded 1 or 2 of them through this program. If there's a shared facility project, again, the same thing. There are going to be lots of other examples of what's working with or without this funding, and that will help people frame their ideas.
And we're using that same kind of rubric of those 9 categories in the playbook that the EfficientGov Network is developing, based on similar information that's used on Skinny, Ohio, but in addition, our members are able to enter it themselves. And I think, as you know, it's an interactive tool to let people really zero in, kind of the way Wikipedia works, and you can really browse from one topic to another, and hopefully it'll spur more ideas and more applications for you.
The other 2 things I guess I'd quickly mention are just continue to talk with each other sometimes, or visit any type of collaboration they've done before. As we found in our shared services survey last year, collaboration begets collaboration. Again, talking about trust and having willing partners, we found that was one of the primary motivations or success factors in a successful collaboration, was you've already done something with those other partners. So I'd say stay at the table over the summer. Everybody needs to take a little bit of time off, I know, and spend some time with families and kids and rest, but do some homework too. Summer school is talking to those partners about what's possible. And then the third thing I'd advise, and Jill, you knew I had to say this, but when the administration releases its shared services action plan for local governments and schools in the state, there's going to be over 50 examples in there of successful collaborations, big programs that the state is sponsoring, and places to get more information about collaboration. So I think that'll be just like the playbook that you've developed with the EfficientGov Network. That'll be a good resource to help guide the conversation as they move towards collaboration.
So I'm going to try and pin you in with a question about timing. By when does the auditor's office hope to be able to have the application materials up that you were referencing? And then this other piece about the shared services, what is the hope for when that'll be available?
It's my understanding, talking to the Department of Development, the IT staff at the auditor's office, and staff at the auditor's office, is they think the local government innovation applications and projects are going to be put over there in the next week or so.
Oh, great.
It really should not take very long. And then the shared services plan will be released very soon.
Okay.
I want to get on summer. I want to get to summer vacation too. I've got 3 kids at home in Akron, Jill. You know that.
I
want to spend some time with them too. I want to get that plan done.
That's right. Well, hey, some of our best examples of regionalism are our metro parks and our state park systems. So we have a lot of great collaborations there. Any other last pieces of advice that you'd want to offer those who are facing looking at how to leverage these dollars? Obviously the 6 to 7 million that was awarded leaves a fair amount left for the next couple of cycles. The grants are capped at 100,000, and the loans are at 500 up to 5 partners. What do you think are the best ways that they can maximize winning those awards?
Well, first I'd say the applications, again, that didn't make it up to the 60-point threshold. And I'll single one out. I can't tell you that the score will be different next time, but the city of Wadsworth took the lead in something that I think they call the State Route 56 7 fire and EMS collaboration. Our cutoff was 60 points for award. We thought we had a pretty high threshold, and they scored 59.82. They were 0.18 of a point away from getting funded. So I'd say for those projects that didn't fund but who did submit applications, again, go back, see what you can find too. Look at similar projects that were funded and see if there is, in an intellectually honest way, a way to revise your application or revise the nature of your project to get you those points. Don't try to game the system. I mean, we'll smell that, we'll see it, but really show some kind of change that helps make that project cross that threshold. So that would be the first thing. But then the second is for new applicants and those existing applicants. Again, it's think big, and I think there were some projects that really received more positive support and scoring because they weren't asking for everything. Or I'd say they didn't say the feasibility study's 100,000, give us 100,000. We did award some of those. But there were other projects that were, there's a 10% match required, whether it's in kind or actual cash dollars. And I think there were some where maybe the project was $67,000 is what they asked for, but it was a $120,000 project because they had 50% local match, right? And or some in-kind services. They did their homework, and then they were just hiring a consultant for part of their overall project. It wasn't just to fund a consultant study. And the same thing with the loan applications. Look at a total budget, look at a return on investment. Really go back and look at your budgets and look at the operating costs you have today, how this transformation is going to impact that. Take the time to do that return on investment analysis and show the return, and then ask for a fair share from the state only for what you need, not for necessarily the maximum amount, but for how it fits into that budget. And then the last thing would be, don't let not getting the award or maybe missing a deadline stop a collaboration from happening. As you know from our other work on EfficientGov Now, many of those projects went forward even though we only awarded $300,000 a year. A number of those projects were successful. I think of the merger of the Summit County, City of Akron, and the Barberton Health Departments. They applied to EfficientGov Now. A number of us thought that was a great project. They were very close to getting funded. They were a finalist, didn't make it. But yet the collaboration happened because everybody was already at the table. And I'd say, let this be an incentive, let this be a sweetener, but please don't give up on your project if you don't get funded. If you've got the critical mass and the momentum, keep the project moving forward, and maybe there's something that develops out of your project that you can come back for funding for later.
I wanted to ask, were there any public-private combinations that applied?
There were a number.
Excuse me.
There were a number of cases, and I was just in a meeting. We're setting up, I'm on the steering committee for the Ohio Digital Summit, which will be held here in Columbus in September. And as you know, I'm a technology advocate and believe that it creates great promise for efficiency and collaboration in government. And we were just talking there about public-private partnerships. And a couple of the technology requests were clearly public-private partnerships where a vendor has been selected, a company's been selected who's going to make an investment where their technology is going to enable the shared service. And so look through the list, like I said, especially in the technology, we list who the partners are, and we'll have those abstracts or some brief explanations of the projects. And I think those private partners are listed right in most of those.
Any ideas within the applications that somebody either on the council or other folks within the state government, they looked at them and said, oh, we should be doing that. Something that somebody else thought of that isn't happening at the state level that maybe could be, something you guys hadn't, wasn't on your radar.
I think that's going to be the next step in the process for us. One, we've got concepts for performance metrics for the program, and so we're going to be discussing those as a council. But we're also sharing these applications to leaders within the state government. And I think that's going to be the next step in this, is assessing some of those things on the technology side, on the facility side, and saying, look, these local governments are really taking the lead here. These are some things we can do that would increase our efficiency at the state level. I definitely think that's the next step in the process. Right now, we are focusing on whether or not the right ones are getting funded. So,
well, congratulations. From my vantage point, both wearing my other hat, my city council hat, I think it's great to be moving people to be thinking this way, and kind of changing the culture, which I think is part of what this is doing. And again, from that 30,000-foot view, seeing it happen statewide, I think you realize, I know I do, just how large a state this is and how diverse the communities are, and yet there are at least these 9 areas that you've identified where collaboration can occur. And as we've both said, success breeds success. So the more that they do that, they build those relationships, the more they get a sense for what's possible. So I give you big props for making it this far, and of course we're thrilled for Northeast Ohio to have been as active as they were. And we like to think that the EfficientGov Network, which grew out of the Efficient Gov Now project, gave folks a real understanding of how this works and how it can work. And I'm hopeful that over time we'll be able to expose the rest of the state, for those who are interested in seeing how that's unfolded up here, be able to do the same. So, any last words? Otherwise, I want to thank you.
Jill, I think you're exactly right. And if I can summarize both what you said and our thoughts are, we're playing follow the leader. And whether that's local government following a lead at the state, or the state, as you pointed out, there's some great things happening locally with collaboration that the state can adopt and look to. But in these projects, we've talked before, this is kind of a venture capital fund. And a big part of our scoring and our vision is either scalability or the ability to replicate a project. We aren't looking for something isolated that can be, kudos to that local group for what they were able to accomplish. It's, look what they did, now go do it that way. Or they're building the framework that others will be able to join or scale up their program. And I'd say it comes down to that simple concept we learned as kids, which is follow the leader. And we're looking for those leaders today, that other governments, other leaders of our local schools and our communities can follow in the future, those examples. That's how we're going to be successful.
Well, and we like to make leaders up here, so so we appreciate the support. I think that everybody has the potential to be a leader, and that's really what it leads them to collaborate. So thank you again. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to sharing all this information with the EfficientGov Network, and of course it'll be available, so if you want, you are able to link to it as well, to the extent that it can be useful to other folks.
Okay.
Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Jill.
Take care. Bye-bye.